Vanta is actually an acronym, and once we understand that acronym, we'll start to understand how this groundbreaking technology works its magic. So Vanta stands for Vertically Aligned Nanotube Arrays. What the heck does that mean? Well, it's talking about the individual pieces that make up the framework of the entire Vanta Black concept. Let's break it down. Vertically aligned. That's straightforward enough to understand. The pieces of the puzzle are rectangular by nature, amazingly about 10,000 times as long as they are wide. It's the nanotube arrays section which is more of a foreign concept. We know nano means small, but how small are we talking? This, folks, is a piece of human hair, just for the sake of a visual reference point. Now, if we zoom in 3,500 times, here you'll see a series of tiny hollow carbon tubes. These microscopic tubes are the nanotube arrays, the building blocks of the entire groundbreaking Vanta Black concept. Because of its tightly knit structure, this material is capable of absorbing all of the light that comes its way. While light would usually bounce off other materials, when it hits Vanta, it becomes trapped and is continually deflected amongst the web of tubes, eventually becoming absorbed and being expelled not as light, but as heat. That means no reflections, no shadows, no contours, and a sleek, cohesive finish unlike anything else on the market. No matter what point of the light spectrum, whether ultraviolet light, visible light, or infrared light, Vanta Black can suck it up, 99.96% of it to be specific. It's not just rumors and speculation either, it's official. Vanta Black holds the independently verified world record of being the darkest man-made substance. In addition to being the material equivalent of a black hole, it's also extremely hydrophobic, meaning that any water just gathers in droplet form or splashes away. It doesn't soak in. It's also heavily shock resistant, undamaged by humidity, and perhaps most impressively, can withstand submersion in extreme temperatures. You can grab a circle of Vanta Black, dump it in a bucket of negative 196 degrees Celsius liquid nitrogen, that's negative 320.8 Fahrenheit in case you were wondering, then transfer it onto a 200 Celsius hot plate, 392 degrees Fahrenheit, and it won't be affected in the slightest. Amazing, right? But enough of this science-y mumbo-jumbo. Let's see this revolutionary technology in action. Here are two identically molded heads. On the right is your original artwork. On your left is the Vanta Black edition. It doesn't look real, does it? It looks a little more like an oval blob that's been superimposed in Photoshop. But now, look at it from the side. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the power of Vanta Black in full force. Because all of the light is absorbed, there are no shadows, therefore no visual contours from a straight-on view. A Lynx marketing video called it the closest thing most people will ever get to staring into a black hole. And judging by their poster, it's a pretty accurate statement. So, how is something like this made? Well, technically, it isn't made, but grown. The microscopic forest of vertical tubes is grown using a modified and patented chemical vapor deposition process, plus a lot of heat, a process which typically takes 2 days from start to finish. Even though it's advertised as the blackest of all blacks, this material isn't actually a color. When light hits the tiny tubes, it's absorbed and cannot escape, which means that Vanta Black is, by definition, the absence of color. It shouldn't come as much of a surprise that the scientific community is going bonkers over this new technology, but they're far from the only ones. A number of commercial companies, everything from automotive trends to fashion retailers, even space travel organizations are getting amongst the action. Well, those who can afford it, of course. But we'll circle back to that in a jiffy. One of the companies who have come to the table as frontrunners to commercialize the Vanta Black technology is BMW. In August of 2019, at the Frankfurt Motor Show, the German automaker unveiled this stunning specimen, the third-generation 2020 BMW X6, covered head-to-toe in a Vanta Black wrap. Besides the grille, lights, wheels, and windows, the spray-on coating makes the car appear almost 2D. And fans went nuts when they saw it. While BMW doesn't have official plans to offer this paint scheme to the public, the look has already received infinite praise and demand. BMW isn't the only company getting involved. Far from it. A Swiss watch manufacturer called MCT has also dabbled with Vanta Black customizations, specifically with this striking timepiece, the S10 Evo Vanta Black. The carbon nanotube paint appears here, behind the dial face, and here, on one end of the minute hand. Combined, these make the dial almost appear as if it's floating. The collection is a limited edition of 10 pieces, priced at $95,000 each. Here's another take on the Vanta Black watch, coming from luxury watchmaker H. Moser. This $75,000 piece is minimalist, sleek, and immediately recognizable because of its lack of logos and details. Which of the two do you prefer? Okay, so we've seen cars and watches and even artwork and deodorant cans, but what else could be on the horizon for this new wave material? Here's an idea. Imagine if the military started using it. It would add a whole new meaning to the concept of stealth and revolutionize camouflage as well as night tactics. Before too long, it could also penetrate the fashion market in a big way. In fact, cheaper and less light-absorbing alternatives are already available, which fashionistas have been using to coat shoes. Thanks to its water resistance, it would also make a perfect outer shell for raincoats and umbrellas too, and even swimwear, wetsuits, and boat coatings. Could we see houses and private jets coated in the stuff? Just to make a statement? What about electronics? We've already seen status-seeking millionaires bedazzle their iPhones in diamonds and gold, so it's only a matter of time before the 1% of this world would start using Vanta Black. Speaking of gold and diamonds, despite their symbolism of opulence and luxury, even they aren't as expensive as our new favorite material. As of late 2020, gold was sitting at around $1,900 per ounce. Diamonds, on the other hand, aren't always priced by weight, but rather a combination of color, cut, clarity, and weight. Just to give you an idea though, a 1-carat high-quality diamond can go for upwards of $15,000, equivalent of close to $105 per ounce. So we've got $1,900 for gold, $105 for diamonds. Now what about Vanta Black? Well, we don't currently have a dollar figure amount because it's not sold by the ounce, pound, or truckful. But if this quote from Steve Northam is anything to go by, we'd need to be inching towards billionaire territory to afford the stuff. Quote, I had an inquiry asking how much it would cost for a kilo of Vanta Black pigment. First of all, I can't sell you a bucket of Vanta Black, but if I could, I don't think there'd be much on the planet that would be more expensive. End quote. But that's just one guy's opinion, right? Wrong. Steve Northam is one of the visionaries behind the technology, working as the business development director for the manufacturer. Surrey Nanosystems, the UK-based company, first announced the nanotech material in 2014. Back then, however, it wasn't aimed at cars or fashion. In its infancy, Vanta Black was intended to aid super technical fields like deep space imaging, optical systems, and automotive sensing. Case in point, telescopes, where systems are needed to absorb any unwanted glare. So have we discovered the blackest black out there? Well, yes, we had, but there's a good chance it'll be quickly knocked off its pedestal into second place. Over at the prestigious MIT, engineers are working on something so dark, so light-absorbing, that it could even eclipse Vanta Black. Supposedly, the MIT material is 10 times darker than any created before it, including Vanta Black. The MIT engineers claim that their product can absorb 99.995% of visible light, compared to Vanta Black's 99.96%. Could we ever reach 100?